The casket's on fire! The casket's on fire!
Kane, introduced in 1997, is one such character, having achieved iconic status. For Glenn Jacobs, the man behind Kane, his journey in wrestling didn't begin in 1997. His early career was marked by several failed gimmicks in the early 1990s, making the role of Kane potentially his final opportunity to make it in the industry. Jacobs never struggled to stand out in wrestling, as his 6 feet 8 inches stature and 300-pound frame attracted the attention of wrestling promoters. In 1992, he made his debut as Angus King, and later adopted several other personas like the Christmas Creature and Doomsday. Jacobs also made a brief appearance in the WCW as Bruiser Mastino, losing to Sting in under 3 minutes during an episode of Saturday Night. In 1995, Jim Cornette brought Jacobs into his Smoky Mountain Wrestling territory under the unfortunate name Una Bomb, a reference to the infamous terrorist Ted Kaczynski. At the time, Cornette had a working relationship with Vince McMahon, so it wasn't long before Jacobs was preparing for his WWF debut. Initially thrilled to join the WWF, Jacobs' enthusiasm quickly faded when he was assigned the character of Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS, an evil dentist. This character was introduced in 1995 during a feud between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler, where Lawler required dental work after a match with Hart. Yankem would go on to face Bret Hart in a series of poorly received matches, leading to the character's inevitable failure. This flop deeply affected Jacobs, making him believe that his wrestling career in the WWF was nearing its end. By September 1996, the character was abandoned, much to Jacobs' relief. Unfortunately for Jacobs, his next role in the WWF would be equally disastrous. After Scott Hall and Kevin Nash defected to WCW, McMahon decided to keep their Razor Ramon and Diesel characters alive by recasting them with different wrestlers. Jacobs was tasked with playing the new Diesel, but replacing such iconic characters proved to be a low point in his career. Jacobs later reflected that his pre-Kane career was full of bad gimmicks that simply didn't work, like Isaac Yankem DDS and the Diesel imitation. He feared he would have a brief and unremarkable career in wrestling. However, as his career seemed to be spiraling downward, a major turning point was just around the corner. By mid-1997, the WWF was facing a dilemma with The Undertaker. Since his debut in 1990, The Undertaker had been built up as an almost unstoppable force, leaving the creative team struggling to find credible opponents for him. During a brainstorming session, Bruce Pritchard posed a game-changing idea. What if The Undertaker had a brother? This idea led to the creation of one of wrestling's most memorable and unique storylines. Paul Bearer, The Undertaker's longtime manager, had turned on him in 1996 and aligned himself with Mankind, The Undertaker's arch-enemy. The storyline revealed Bearer's hidden knowledge of The Undertaker's past, as Bearer had once worked for The Undertaker's parents at their funeral home. As children, The Undertaker and his younger brother, Kane, were playing with matches one night, causing a devastating fire that killed their parents and, supposedly, Kane. However, in a shocking twist, Paul Bearer revealed that Kane had survived the fire, emerging with severe disfigurements and psychological trauma. Bearer also confessed to having had an affair with The Undertaker's mother, making Kane his illegitimate son. Kane had spent the past 2 decades in a mental institution, with Bearer keeping his existence a secret. The storyline set the stage for an epic confrontation between The Undertaker and Kane, and the anticipation for Kane's arrival built steadily. The WWF knew they needed to deliver a spectacular introduction for Kane, and they succeeded. In October 1997 at Badd Blood, The Undertaker was locked in a grueling hell in a cell match with Shawn Michaels. As The Undertaker appeared to be on the verge of victory, the arena suddenly went dark. Kane made his dramatic entrance, storming into the ring and tearing the cell door off its hinges. For the first time, fans got to see Kane, and his entrance left a lasting impression, akin to witnessing a horror movie monster come to life. Kane's appearance, complete with a mask and a dominating presence, immediately positioned him as a terrifying and iconic character, rivaling horror icons like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, he delivered a tombstone piledriver to The Undertaker, signaling that the dead man was no longer invincible. The build-up to Kane's debut had been masterfully executed, and much of the credit for this goes to Paul Bearer, whose increasingly intense promos hyped the mystery surrounding The Undertaker's brother. For Jacobs, Kane was a much-needed winning gimmick after years of failed personas. Wearing a mask helped distance him from his earlier, forgettable roles. Initially, Kane's character was intended to be called Inferno, but Bruce Pritchard preferred the name Kane, referencing the biblical story of Cain and Abel, which fit the storyline. Thus began the slow build to a match between Kane and The Undertaker at WrestleMania 14 in March 1998. Leading up to the match, Kane wreaked havoc, continuously provoking his brother. Though The Undertaker initially refused to fight his own sibling, he eventually relented, and the match was set. At the time, the match between Kane and The Undertaker at WrestleMania 14 was considered a spectacle. The build-up had been incredible, but in hindsight, the match itself was a bit underwhelming, lasting longer than necessary. Nevertheless, Kane's position as one of wrestling's most iconic characters was solidified, and Jacobs had finally found his place in the industry. Over time, Kane and The Undertaker's roles would shift, with The Undertaker turning heel and Kane becoming a babyface. Eventually, the two teamed up as the Brothers of Destruction, a formidable tag team. As the years passed, Kane's character underwent various transformations, much like classic horror movie villains. Initially silent, Kane was later given a voice, using an electronic larynx to deliver eerie promos. The Kane character proved far more adaptable than expected, fitting into storylines at every level, from main events to mid-card feuds. In 2003, Kane faced Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship, with the stipulation that if Kane lost, he would have to unmask. When Kane was defeated, he removed his mask for the first time, which was both a blessing and a curse. While unmasking allowed fans to see Jacobs' full range of facial expressions, the makeup used to portray Kane's disfigurement was poorly done and time-consuming to apply. The WWE eventually moved away from the makeup, explaining that Kane's disfigurement was psychological rather than physical, a stretch of the imagination, but one that was accepted. Kane's unmasked era featured memorable storylines, including his feud with Edge and his unusual relationship with Lita. However, it also included some low points, such as his feud with the Great Khali. In the 2010s, Kane returned to wearing his mask, though no real explanation was given. During this time, he formed a tag team with Daniel Bryan called Team Hell No, providing fans with comedic moments and helping to further Bryan's babyface run. Kane also became part of The Authority, this time appearing without his mask and wearing a suit, as Jacobs began shifting his focus to ventures outside wrestling. Kane made occasional returns to the ring, including one final run alongside The Undertaker. After more than 25 years in the WWE, Glenn Jacobs as Kane was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. While Kane's character evolved significantly from his debut, he will always be remembered for his original, iconic version. Over the years, Kane became one of the most versatile and memorable characters in professional wrestling.